The Iron Game Chalk Talk podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors: EliteForm.com and IgnitionAPG.com. And now, the Iron Game Chalk Talk podcast. Welcome to Iron Game Chalk Talk with your host, Ron McKeefery.
Every time our athletes walk into this weight room, they're going to be pushed to the max.
Let's go! Everything you got!
On this podcast, hear Coach McKeefery's straight talk about training, featuring the top strength and conditioning professionals from around the world. And now, here's your host, Ron McKeefery.
Hey guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Ron McKeefery. This is episode number 63. Iron Game Chalk Talk is a weekly podcast where I bring you experts in the field to talk shop. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to us on iTunes or YouTube, or join us on our mailing list at ronmckiefery.com so you can stay up to date with the latest episodes and anything else we have going on. Very, very excited to have Andrea Hudy. Andrea Hudy is the Assistant Athletic Director, Head Strength Coach for Kansas, the University of Kansas, and she's won every award out there. Strength Coach of the Year. Just done a phenomenal job there of developing a program and top-notch athletes, top-notch facilities, and she's definitely behind it all. So real excited to have her on the show. We talk a little bit about basketball programming, all the success that they've had there. We talk about the administration and how she's been able to get them to buy into her vision and allocate the resources and sometimes even create opportunities and resources on her own. And then lastly, I think she's coming out with a new book called Power Positions that she's kind of put everything into three power positions. So we talk a little bit about that. I would highly encourage you to go out and get her book when it comes out. And she's just a great ambassador for our profession and what she's done and accomplished and just blazed a trail. And so I know you're going to get a ton out of this. Before we get going, I want to make sure we recognize our sponsors, EliteForm.com and IgnitionAPG.com. Ignition APG is a performance company based in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I've said it before, I've gotten a chance to really know these guys through the years, and what they do by training the athlete, mind, body, and spirit is just unbelievable. And, I think that they're truly committed to making a lasting impression on this community. And so I would encourage you to reach out to them, tell them how much you appreciate them helping make this show for you to you for free. But I would definitely check out their speed certification. They have a speed certification that I did last year. They're doing it at a couple locations through the year, but they can do a staff certification. And so reach out to them at ignitionapg.com and check out that certification. But anytime you can add a speed certification to your resume, I think is a great thing. Lastly, I wanted to make sure you guys are aware of Strength Coach Basic Training. Strength Coach Basic Training is a product that I created where I put 8 training videos. It's the same videos that I use with our interns. And our intern program has done a pretty good job putting strength coaches out. But it's a lecture series along with assignments and projects. And then I moved it to Facebook, a private Facebook group, so that you can have fantastic interaction with other coaches that are in the same level. And so if you're a young strength coach just getting in the field, definitely go check out strengthcoachbasictraining.com and join there, and then we'll add you to the Facebook group. And it's just a way that early on you can create an instant network, interact with your peers and grow together and get feedback from me as well as the other coaches on the program. So definitely check that out. Very, very excited for Coach Hudy and what we're going to get out of this episode. So sit back, take lots of notes, and we'll see you on the other side. All right, guys, real excited to have Andrea Hudy with us. Coach Hudy is the head strength coach for she's the head strength coach for how many sports at Kansas?
I'm the head strength and conditioning coach for all sports but football, okay. So that'll be about 13 sports.
and worked specifically with the men's basketball program and had some phenomenal success throughout her career. And so, Coach, we're excited you're on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You know, for those, I mean, you've won tons of awards, and everybody knows who you are. But for those that are just getting to meet you for the first time, go into a little bit of your backstory. You know, what got you into strength and conditioning, and then what were some of the stops along the way?
What got me into strength and conditioning was being the youngest of 5 kids in a family of athletes and teachers. And, the dinner table talks of my parents around the dinner table being teachers, and then my brothers and sisters, all older, turned into teachers. But they were also athletes in college, so I was always training with them or trying to play catch up. And I knew when I went to college that I wanted to study exercise, but I didn't know exactly what it was. And that was, kind of back into when strength and conditioning first started to reach into all colleges. My strength coach in college was Frank Costello.
Yeah.
He's a legend in his own time. And we did a lot of plyometrics, and I actually studied plyometrics, wrote my thesis on it in college. But I thought I wanted to get into where the money was. Being out of college, you want to make money, and I got into corporate fitness and hated it.
Yeah.
And knew that I wanted to work with high-level people that wanted to push themselves. And I got a graduate assistantship under Jerry Martin at the University of Connecticut.
You were at Connecticut for 10 years almost?
9.5. Yeah, 9.5. And we, it was. Man, Jerry was the head coach, and there were like 3 GAs. So everybody worked with everybody, every athlete, every team. And it was like, we had this one small, tiny weight room. Football was 1AA at the time. And we had groups and athletes in this small weight room from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., almost every hour on the hour. And if you couldn't get a team in the weight room, we had to get creative and do different things outside the weight room, whether it was the hill training, use of bands. So, we had to be creative.
Yeah, absolutely. You went from UConn to Kansas, where you've been, that's a topic in and of itself, where you've been able to stick at 2 places for a majority of your career, which is phenomenal, because that's not the norm in this profession, is it?
Right. No, it's not. I think both of those situations were very unique because the athletic director or the athletic administration hired these positions, so I wasn't tied to one coach.
Right.
But then, if you can. Being a coach, you have to make relationships and connections, and I was fortunate enough to make some really great connections with some really great coaches who are actually Hall of Fame coaches. So,
right.
That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Well, even along the way, and as much success as you've had, I'm sure there's been mistakes that you've made along the way. What were some of the key mistakes that you've made that helped shape your career, maybe?
I still make mistakes every day.
So,
if you sit and ponder and look on it, you wish you made a different decision. I do every day. Probably one of the biggest mistakes that I've made is, not being, UConn was a pretty cool place to be with Dr. Kramer, Jerry, those guys, and just probably not earlier on in my career, not being open to other ideas. Mm-hmm. And embracing those. After I got over that, probably, then my relationships and connections with people started to really happen. So, just being closed-minded in terms of, I have my philosophy, I have my foundation, but connecting with people with different thoughts and different philosophies has also been pretty key in my career development.
No question.
So I think that being closed-minded is probably a mistake. Also, I think probably being a woman in the field has led to myself making the mistake in terms of not having the confidence when I was younger to go out there and introduce myself to people. And just, you kind of hiding in the back, waiting for somebody to come up to you and introduce themselves. Well, you know what? I got over that pretty quickly too. So
yeah, absolutely.
Not being assertive probably has been a mistake in the past.
Sure. Well, I talk a lot on the show about being a principle-based strength coach and not a philosophy-based strength coach. And once you have your core principles in line,
and then not being closed-minded, getting out, meeting as many coaches as you can. I mean, there's so much good out there, you know.
Oh yeah.
And there's so many things that having key tools in the toolbox for when you are in different scenarios. You know, you have an athlete that's injured, you have to, you got to get outside the box a little bit. Doesn't really fit into maybe the Olympic lifting, multiple joint movements. You got to isolate or whatever, or vice versa. It's critical.
Yeah. Totally, and just being able to be open-minded or more open-minded about it has helped.
Sure. You mentioned, being a female in the field, and obviously, I mean, you've had ultimate success being at, how many, 8 national championships or something along those lines now?
Well, 9.
9, who's counting? But you had 9, been a part of 9 national championships. You're running a department. I mean, you're doing exactly what every strength coach, not male, female, whatever, sets out to do. What about, what advice would you have for a young female strength coach that's facing the obstacles of a male-dominated profession per se? What advice would you give her?
Well, somebody gave me this wisdom just actually probably about a month ago. Jeff Hathaway, who was one of the ADs at UConn, who's now the AD at Hofstra, he said to me, "Hey, congratulations on all your success, Hudy. You're really great at what you do, and I feel like I'm good at what I do. I'm a good teacher. I'm always learning. I'm humble to be around the people that I am. I've worked with great coaches, so I can't say that." We won because of what I've done. That's so not the case. I feel like I'm a part of that. And, I told him, I said, yeah, it's great to work with great coaches and great players. You just grab onto their coattails and you go with it, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, you know what, you need to give yourself a little bit of credit. The one thing that has made you successful is the fact that you've taken every opportunity and done the best with it, and that's success.
Absolutely.
So I love that. I love what he said about that because, that gave me more confidence too, because I'm fortunate to work with some great people.
Absolutely.
So what advice would I give females? I always say there's, and guys are very aware of it. There's an old boys club, right? So guys tend to take care of each other, and I think women need to start really taking care of each other and empowering one another to really do well and to raise each other up. So, with women it gets pretty competitive because it is tough. It's
right.
Really tough to get ahead. But I think if we can get together and even with guys, just learn from everybody, understand how to fit in, and maybe not take so many things so personally because we're going to fail.
Right.
I fail every day. And as long as you get good at failing, then you probably get good at succeeding too.
Absolutely.
So, just maybe not take so many things so personally because everybody's out there to do well.
Right. Well, it's hard in this profession, and this is one of the things that, as you and I both get up there in terms of years of coaching and things like that experience teaches, early on I was the guy that threw a plate at a player for being late walking in the door and losing, and you got to take the emotional piece out. It's so hard when you're so invested and you spend so much time, but once you start to do that, and it's not that a personal attack. I mean, Tommy Moffitt said it on the show that the athletes that we deal with, they don't love the weight room as much as we do. They'll never will. Mm-hmm. That's why we chose to do this for a living. But when you take that emotion out, whether or not it's for your career path or for when you're dealing with the coach with your athletes, it really starts to open up more doors for you in terms of being the best version of yourself.
Yeah, right. And, I guess experience does really help with that.
No.
And the one thing that we try to teach, and I think we have pretty good success with, is turning a have to and a want to for our guys. And I think once they see the results and the things that we do that's specific to them to help them get better, it becomes a want to. And then there's a lot of buy-in from the athlete. And then once the coaches see that, then you can't stop it. It's a rolling train,
Absolutely. You mentioned in there, one of the books that I always recommend our young coaches, and it's a juvenile book, but it's but a great message is, make the big time where you're at, and that's such a critical piece of advice that you gave earlier about, don't get caught up so much in the, what the next job's going to be, what's the next opportunity is going to be, wherever you're at, wherever school it is, make the big time where you're at. UConn, when you got there, was 1AA football, was kind of, it's up northeast, kind of away from all the different programs, and you made the big. It's become one of the premier athletic departments in the country. And South Florida, when I was there, was in 1AA and 2,000 square foot weight room, and and it ended up becoming one of the better programs in the country at the time. And it's just make the big time where you're at. And I think for your coaches in general, you mentioned male, female, whatever. It's taking every opportunity that you have come your way, but early on, it's however you can make that opportunity happen. Whether that's if you're a young female strength coach and the stigma out there is, okay, well, most strength staffs want to have a female strength coach on staff. Take it. If you're an African American strength coach, take it. If you're if you are a strength coach and you're just getting the job because you played football, take it. It doesn't matter. Now, the difference is, and just like becoming a head strength coach is, if you may get that opportunity just based off of who you know or what you've been but you're not going to keep that opportunity unless you're of substance, and that's the most important thing. And I know that for you, obviously you had a great education at UConn. That's probably one of the again an underrated program in terms of the exercise science component, and having Dr. Kramer there and all that. Where do you turn? For your continuing ed now, how do you learn? Where do you continue to sharpen the sword?
Dr. Andrew Fry is right across the street too. So we actually have research and sports science information coming out of our weight room ourselves. So we just finished a pretty big cortisol study, about 27 to 28 weeks of performance in with cortisol in the relationship to testosterone over about 28 weeks of our basketball season. And what we saw was just unbelievable. And, I probably have 12 different studies here that have come out of what we've done with collaborating with Dr. Fry. Right now, with technology getting to where it is, I've used heart rate monitors in the past. We've used some GPS things in the past. But the one thing that I can actually have an impact on is what happens in the weight room. So that's why we've partnered with Sparta Sports Science. And, we've got 6 force plates. And we do a lot of force production testing and how athletes are producing their force from the ground. And then we also have elite form, too. Mm-hmm. So now we're programming based on velocity, based on power, based on load. So those are things that I can control, and that's why this technology here is why we have that. Now, I'm all for the GPS and things like that, but again, Coach Self might not listen to me if I say, Coach, they ran too hard yesterday. So we're constantly learning. We also have a Midwest Sport Performance Conference that we have and host and bring people in that we want to hear talk. And we go to conferences, try to connect with everybody we can. We're constantly learning, and that's part of what we consider the Kansas way.
Absolutely. Well, I know that there's obviously a UConn KU connection there. Kansas, but I've always been very impressed with the commitment that the athletic administration has shown at Kansas in terms of providing resources and providing the force plates and GPS and all that. When you approach your athletic director or whoever you report to at Kansas, how are you fighting for those resources? And because the dollar only goes so far at every school, and it doesn't matter where, and it doesn't usually want to be placed.
Yeah.
And strength and conditioning.
How we got the force plates is I knew that there wasn't money available at the time, but I knew it could be pretty revolutionary in looking at force production in the future. And I think that So I went to the administration and I said, hey, this is pretty important. It could be groundbreaking. I would like to raise money in the community, have a fundraiser, bring people in, and let's go for it because it's really important. And they allowed me to do that, and we raised a lot of money within a month. And it's just the support of this Kansas athletics and the Kansas community, the Kansas alumni, people that know that we're trying to be at the forefront of sport performance. And we raised the money. The administration let me do it. We bought the force plates. We have 6 of them. And then also, too, reaching out to these companies and letting them work with us in terms of a financial package. We worked with Elite Form and came out with a financial package for that would benefit them and also benefit us. So we got it done. That's awesome. It's just working with people.
Talk a little bit about that. It's interesting. The community fundraiser. What did you guys do, and what are some things that other athletic departments can do?
Well, Kansas basketball is a huge name, and we got permission that the athletes came in, and we invited a lot of people to come in, watch the athletes work out, from cross-country runners to baseball players, softball players, football. I don't think we had football players, but we had basketball players, men's and women's, and just the importance of how the Elite Form helped us with velocity training. And then Dr. Wagner came in and spoke, and he's correlating injury risks with how people produce force, and we just thought it was important. And they heard it. They heard the message, and we keep getting better. And I think people see that.
Absolutely, that's great. So it's basically just a workout, like symposium type deal, where hey, this is what we're doing with it. Now this is the science behind it.
Yeah, and it helps too to build connections with anybody through the community and anybody through the alumni association and things like that. Those connections are great. So you never know who somebody's going to be. No doubt. So we always try to reach out to whoever walks in our door.
That's awesome. Well, I know this gets to be a busy time of year for you. All the guys are getting back. I'm sure they're taking summer session B or whatever it is there. What does this off-season program look like for Kansas basketball right now? How many days a week you lifting? How many days a week you running?
Basketball now we're allowed to practice in the summertime, so that's thrown kind of a kink in the chain of developing a long-term athlete. So they get all those reps on the court. So what we try to do is offset those reps in the weight room. So when we look at overall and what we're trying to develop a very stiff, reactive basketball player. And then once basketball season hits, we take the opposite approach and work on compliant mobility, posterior chain, just to offset all those high-intensity ballistic reps on the basketball court. So right now we're loading, develop some anterior chain strength. We're loading and trying to develop the stiffness. We're going 4 days a week, non-linear periodization. So we're not doing a whole lot of conditioning, but we're doing some plyometrics.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. What in terms of long-term development and your role there at Kansas, I'm assuming the relationships has been the most critical component. What are some things that you do personally to develop key relationships with those athletes, and and I know I've heard you talk, and I've heard you read some articles that you've been a part of, but I mean you're not just the 4 years there that you're there. You're talking to athletes 4 years, 10 years, 15 years.
Yeah, it's Kansas and Lawrence is a special place for any athlete. So it is building a relationship of trust. But, the difference that separates a coach and a teacher is wins and losses. Mm-hmm. So I don't get those wins and losses. Now, I benefit from them, but they're not mine.
Right.
So I think it comes down to being a really good teacher and showing the athlete that you care, showing the coach that you care, showing the administration that you care, and teaching them lifetime skills not just physical ones, but also ones that of accountability, discipline, talking to the kid. So
Right.
I think it's more than wins and losses to me. It's not about what you do, it's who you are,
Yeah. No, it's critical. Well, you've got a book coming out, power positions, and through that force plate and sparse science and those fundraiser and things along those lines, you've kind of narrowed things down into 3 power positions. And talk a little bit about that, and talk us a little bit about what the book is going to do for the strength and conditioning community.
Yeah, I think, with our collaboration with Sparta Science, with Phil Wagner, we've looked at these 3 different power positions, and it's no longer sport-specific, it's position-specific. So you look at a basketball player who plays defense and has to be reactive, both laterally and vertically. It's almost the same position as an inside wide receiver in football, or a defensive back in football, maybe a running back, somebody who has to accelerate really quickly. So the first position is a lateral or reactive athlete. And then the second position is a rotational athlete, and a golfer, tennis player, pitcher in baseball or softball. And then the third athlete is a linear top speed runner. So an outside wide receiver in football, Colin Kaepernick would be a linear runner. Yeah. A safety would be a linear runner, and then track sprinters, anybody over 100, 200 meter, 400 meter, 800 meter sprinter now is a linear athlete. So what you do is you look at what these athletes, what's it take to build a highly highly skilled athlete in any one of those 3. Oh, the other one is a linear endurance person. So any kind of triathlete, any kind of long distance runner, cyclist, somebody who gets stuck in a position for a really long time.
Right.
And we offset that. So there's actually 4, but there's 2 linear subsets. So we look at what it takes to build that skilled athlete. And then once you build that athlete, how you offset all those reps that they're doing competitively to stay healthy. So, there's year-round programs for each one of those athletes in there. And I think it could be groundbreaking in terms of how people look at movement.
Yeah. When we were talking a little bit off camera about just general athleticism, and, when you break down into maybe, and you're getting more specific into the sport that they're playing or the position that they're playing, I'm assuming that there is still components of all the other things as far as year-round development.
Yeah,
so you're not going completely specific in one area. Is that correct?
Right. If you look at, we'll just use a basketball player, for example. If you look at a basketball player, they tend to be stiff. They walk around, they can't ever get into that full fetal position, squat, unloaded. They have trouble, their toes turn out. And that's just generally speaking for most really tall basketball players. So what we try to do is develop some anterior chain strength, maybe a little bit more muscle stiffness. And, we look at joints are mobile or stable. What I look at muscles is, are they stiff or are they compliant? And what we're trying to do is build this whole length or this whole gamut of being compliant and healthy, but also being highly reactive and stiff. So our athletes, basketball athletes, trying to do right now is build this anterior chain, because they break all the time. It's constant breaking. They never hit top speed, so posterior chain strength is low. But if I can get this athlete to be highly developed anterior chain, stiff, then they go to practice in November, and we just offset those movements with really compliant exercises that are posterior chain dominant to keep the athlete healthy. And, just like a rotational athlete who maybe get hypermobile.
Right.
Everybody says golfers need core strength. Well, you know what? That's what separates them, is that they are so mobile through their torso. So if they become hypermobile, that's an issue. But, what we're trying to do is create this mobility through their torso, but then maybe in the season when they swing a lot, we need to create some level of stiffness to be able to produce the force. So it's interesting stuff.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I definitely want to check that one out. let's go into a little bit. I mean, why did you want to write the book in the first place? And then, I mean, we go to school to be coaches, and that whole writing process. How did you go about it? You had an idea. What were some of the first steps you did?
Well, I would say that it started with some concepts of, the foundation was set with the presentations. I'm always asked to do presentations, so the foundation was set there. So there was a framework to it. And then looking at and working with Dr. Wagner and breaking people down in these positions, I had all the information. It was just organizing it, So, I was one that didn't do very well on my English part of my SAT, and I hated writing, reading comprehension. I'm not good at it. But for me to be able to say in my lifetime that I wrote not one but 2 books, second one coming out later, but that's pretty cool. And I've had some help too. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, it is a process, and it's been a creative process because you get stuck sometimes on the road, not having a whole lot to do, waiting for a game, waiting for the guys to get on the bus, and I just kept organizing. I did more editing than I did writing.
Really?
So, you talk about a creative process. I'm not one to think about something as a process. I'm a coach. I want it now,
Right,
So
right.
It has taken some time.
Yeah, it's something that, myself, I mean, it's something that's a goal of mine as well, and been working on one myself, but I tell you, it's been hard for me, for the same reasons. It doesn't come natural, and it's the time piece, so just trying to bang away when you got an idea.
I went to New York, and everybody there, they want to sell to the masses. They want fitness. Right. So I met with a couple publishing houses with my literary agent, and probably what I'll end up doing is self-publishing because, they want fitness, and I don't know fitness.
Right.
I'm a performance coach, and that's what I'm about. I'm not going to change who I am. But, you talk about failing. I've failed about 1,000 times with this book.
No doubt.
And hopefully now it'll come out in August. So
that's fantastic. Well, we'll make sure to link that up when you got the everything for you. But I know you're busy, and I'm sorry I kept you as long as I have, but we finished things off here with some motivation, some resources. So give us a quote that either you live by or that you have plastered up in the weight room somewhere.
I think the guy's name is Goethe. I think Goethe.
Yeah.
Do you pronounce it like that? And the quote is, you can judge the character of a man by what he does for somebody who can't do anything for him. So I love that one. I think that's great because, you treat everybody the same way. That's my favorite quote.
That's awesome. What about, a website and app recommendation?
The website would be the Sparta Science one, actually. There's some awesome information on there. Phil and his staff, they make you think outside the box. I think it's spartapoint.com. Our app we use as a recovery app, the Sparta Track, actually, which looks at recovery regeneration. So we work directly with that. We also use the Jawbone Up for recovery. So we look at if the guys friend me, I can look and check out their sleep patterns and whatnot. So we provided Jawbone Up for our guys. So that app actually is pretty cool too.
Is that a paid resource or is that a?
We supply the Jawbone Up, and then the app is free, obviously. So
another piece of technology. It's great.
Yeah.
What about some, maybe give me a book that's a strength and conditioning book that you recommend, and maybe one that's outside of strength and conditioning.
I use Super Training as a reference all the time. I always learn something new every time I go look at a page, even.
That's about what you have to do with that book, because you have to read a page at a time, for sure.
I know, right? And then I just got the new Donald Chu, Gregory Meyer Plyometrics, the Enhanced Edition. So that's always a good resource also. What else did you ask for?
Something outside of strength and conditioning.
Yeah, Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. It actually, what's cool is for women, we're perceived as vulnerable, but if you can figure it out, you can use it to your advantage, which is cool. And then the other one is by Brene Brown also, and it's called The Gifts of Imperfection.
That's great.
There's a Lean In book too, and I can't remember who wrote that, unfortunately, but she was the CEO or CFO of Facebook. It's called Lean In.
Lean In.
Lean into the discomfort.
That's cool. I haven't read any of those. I'm gonna have to check those out.
Yeah,
well, Coach. I mean, obviously, your commitment to the profession with giving back constantly with speaking and writing now, and what you've been able to accomplish there at Kansas is something that we can all strive for. So I truly appreciate what you do for the profession and for coming on the show. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
That's it for this episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk. Thanks to this week's guest as well as our sponsors, EliteForm.com and IgnitionAPG.com for bringing this episode to you for free. Make sure to check out RonMcKeefery.com where you can join our mailing list, find the show notes, including all the links and resources mentioned, and information about Coach McKeefery's other products. While you are there, please join Coach McKeefery in the comments section thanking our guest for sharing. If you haven't subscribed to Iron Game Chalk Talk on YouTube or iTunes yet, make sure to do so. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome. Coach McKeefery can be found on Twitter at @RMcKeefery, on Facebook and YouTube at /Ron.McKeefery. That's it for this week. Be sure to check back next week for another great episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk.